All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. I am going to share my screen and get started. So you get me today. I'm Carly Endries. I'm the Outreach Coordinator for NDBIN. You can reach us at the website below, and also the 1-800 number is answered by our resource facilitator, Nikki Livdalen. So her number is down there, 482-855-866-1884. All of our emails and everything are available, excuse me, on our website too. So this webinar comes from an idea that actually a teacher in Dickinson approached us about doing some education and awareness information and prevention information to her students. She teaches the high school medical careers class in Dickinson. Sarah Road is her name. And so she reached out wondering if we could do some training. And so I said, of course we can. And how about if we were to partner with the elementaries and let them also let your students train them? There's kind of some research out there that shows that if you use an I teach, you teach model, so if your brain is learning and then it's teaching what you just learned, it really helps you understand the information presented. So we thought that would be a good way for the high schoolers to really retain the information. So they took what I told them and then made their own presentations and then presented those to the elementary kids, and those kids then made art projects. And so I'm going to show you some of those and talk about a little bit of prevention awareness type stuff. I do love talking to the high schoolers or the younger kids about prevention. I think there's just so many aspects of brain injury that you can cover with them. With the high schoolers especially, I like to talk about shaking babies and how that is not okay to shake a baby, because we do still see shaken babies, even though we tell people never ever shake a baby. And wearing seatbelts, wearing helmets, and helmets not just for bike riding, but for all other sports. I like to bring in the movie Crash Reel and show a clip from that and talk about Kevin Pierce. He was a kind of famous snowboarder that had a TBI while he was training for the Olympics, and there's a documentary that chronicles his recovery. So just really kind of trying to show that brain injury can happen really anywhere at any time, so that students are aware of that. So here are the first graders, and behind them are the students that taught them. So they're holding up their pictures. Some of them didn't all submit pictures. They had to have parents sign back, so you might not see all of these, but you can see on their desks they have some of our materials we sent along too. We gave each kid a pencil with a brain eraser on it, and we gave them the ABCs of brain injury and a coloring page from NDBIN as well too. So those are the first graders, and then also we had a group of fifth graders. So the bigger kids, here they are. I'm kind of getting silly, but again, you can see the materials on their desks, and there's a couple of the high school kids mixed in that picture too. So, but all right, so here is our first submission. This is Avery. So this was a coloring page that they were provided, and she did such a nice job coloring that in. So she is a first grader. They talked about going into the doctor after bumping your head significantly, and so they used some doctor coloring pages. So I just wanted to kind of talk about the leading causes of TBI too, just so everyone's aware. Falls are the biggest one, and particularly in North Dakota, slipping and falling on ice is the most common way individuals sustain a brain injury. So making sure you keep your sidewalks clear in the wintertime and using that salt on your slipperier surfaces in your home. Having grab bars, having bars along your stairways, making sure your rugs are all down properly, secured properly can really help. And even rugs that are a little bit brighter can help us see them visually. Like, for example, if they're at the bottom of your steps or something, then you can really see the rug too is going to be coming up. The next highest category is kind of the unknown or other. Then we get into motor vehicle accidents. So again, wearing seatbelts super important. That's 17%. Struck by against is also 17%. And that's referring to more of like our sports related injuries. I think of the one student we have out in the Newtown area. She was playing basketball and another student kind of bumped into her and then she hit the wall. So her head hit the wall. So it wasn't necessarily someone else hitting her, but it was the wall, just her bouncing off the wall. And then assault with 10%. So that includes things like bar fights, but also things like domestic violence and that. And here's another picture for us. This one Jade colored for us. Jade Fugman got creative with the markers there, and she kind of went patriotic for us, I'd say. Red, white, and blue, and some brown there. Causes by age, and this one only goes for younger kids. We don't really have I don't necessarily know if we have an adult one of this, but we will look into that for sure. But you can kind of see the causes, and then so the bar falls, you can see are the highest with most of these as well, except for once they get into that like 5 to 12, 13 to 16, this color is transport, so motor vehicle type accidents, and seatbelt use and all of that becomes more important. Kids in this, 0 to 4, falls and just they're learning how to walk and learning how to use their environment and things. So just making sure they're safe as they can be. But yeah, that's causes by age for 1 to 16 or 0 to 16. And here's one more coloring sheet. This is Jameson Wandler. He definitely likes his crayons. This one talks about prevalence of brain injury. So it is the second most prevalent disability in the United States. So this includes TBI, stroke, and epilepsy as a brain injury. And this is compared to depression and intellectual disability, and then describes the population living with brain injury in the United States. Medical advances mean many more individuals with TBI survive than in previous times, which makes it possible for the rate of death related to TBI to decrease while rates of injury have increased. So some other things that are worth noting on this slide, there was one study that found that 67% of women victims of domestic violence also had symptoms associated with brain injury. And then a high proportion of the 2 million people currently in the US prisons have brain injury, not necessarily recognized, diagnosed, or treated. And we are going to touch on the domestic violence and the criminal justice system here in a little bit. So there is another drawing for us. This one is Erin Martin. I think she's trying to tell us she has a bandage on her ankle right now. I'm assuming this is her trying to spell ankle. So first graders are definitely still working on spelling and all of that, but she likes purple and pink. Possible causes after a brain or consequences from a brain injury. With this slide, we always have the fatigue and lack of awareness bigger because those seem to be the most impactful. Fatigue especially, and with brain injury, it's important to remember there's kind of two kinds of fatigue. There's the primary and the secondary. The primary coming from the injury itself and actual physical fatigue, and then the secondary kind of referring to more of all the other factors like anxiety, stress, those types of things can really exacerbate your symptoms of a brain injury. Physical changes, cognitive, and then emotional and behavioral changes all are definitely things that happen after brain injuries as well. So now we get into the fifth graders that were submitted, and these ones are a little more exciting because they weren't just a coloring sheet. They got to be as creative as they want. So this one is by Briella Henderson. So she said, prevent brain injuries, don't smoke, wear your seatbelt, and she even drew a cute little brain right there. So don't smoke. They did cover stroke with these kiddos too. So that is a big stroke prevention aspect is not smoking. So I'm going to talk about that in a little bit here too. But I also just wanted to touch on substance abuse. a lot of people with a brain injury end up developing a substance use problem for the first time after their injury. There's one gentleman, a scientist type guy that talks about this in terms of Little Red Riding Hood and the Big Bad Wolf. So they say that if someone, sustains a brain injury and we don't warn them about the possibility of substance use, it can be compared to not warning Little Red Riding Hood about the Big Bad Wolf. So it's there. It's something just to be aware of and to try to avoid substance use when possible, and especially for those with brain injury. Brainline is a great website. That's where we got that stat from. And if you have any time to check that out, I would recommend it. So stroke prevention also was kind of covered in that last one with the not smoking. Stroke ranks as the 5th leading cause of death in the United States. It's also the leading cause of disability in the US. 80% of second clot related strokes may be preventable. So eating good, keeping your weight at a good number, keeping your blood pressure, going to the doctor regularly can help with a lot of that. And then, talking to your doctor about different aspirins and medications and things like that can also really help with stroke prevention. Here's another one, McKenna Tippett. She wrote, wearing a helmet will prevent serious brain injury. And then she did a very nice job doing the whole brain on there and all the different lobes and things. McKenna's for you. I wanted to just mention about the prevalence of suicide among the brain injury population is pretty high, and it can be high long after the brain injury is sustained as well. It kind of remains an ongoing problem for the individual in certain cases. So there was a study that was done that said that even 7 years after brain injury, the individual still faced a 75% higher risk of suicide. There's a lot of information out there that kind of talks about one of the side effects of a brain injury would be impulsivity, and that's probably where this comes into play as far as the suicide piece. Someone with a brain injury doesn't necessarily, and if they're having that suicidal ideation type, or if they're a suicide risk, they often don't go through the typical cycle of someone else that doesn't have a brain injury that's contemplating suicide goes through, like kind of a long-term depression and giving away items, things like that sometimes can be seen as red flags by family members and others to hopefully prevent that final act. But a lot of times with brain injury, they're not going through that cycle like someone else would. So they oftentimes are jumping right to the final act. So this one is Brooklyn Shawn's. She said, prevent brain injury / TBI, no drinking and driving, that's a big one, no smoking, car safety, wearing your seatbelt, and then she also labeled all the different parts of the brain and be safe and love your brain. They probably talked with her about Love Your Brain and about Kevin Pierce. That was the snowboarder I mentioned at the beginning. His family has now and him have started a foundation, Love Your Brain, that does yoga and meditation. And so they probably mentioned that to the kiddos. Another aspect of brain injury is homelessness. The numbers are quite high. And a lot of times 87% of the brain injuries were sustained prior to the individual losing their home. So it's not something that's with the population necessarily their injury isn't necessarily happening while they're homeless, it's happening prior to them becoming homeless. We do have a really good webinar Wednesday done by Tom Tatlock on this under our archived Web Wednesdays. So I would encourage you to watch that one if this is an area that interests you. He's got some really good, he's a psychiatrist, but he's also a survivor. So he's really good about going out to like homeless shelters and just offering different tiny little tidbits that can dramatically change things for someone that's homeless, like dimming your lights, reducing distractions when you're talking with them, keeping your appointments at the same time. He gives lots of nice little tips that I really like in his presentation. All right, here's another one. This is Madison Rucker. A brain can get a concussion and get injured, she says. Good one. I guess I don't know if that's a boy or girl. Madison can be a unisex name, I suppose, can't it? All right, criminal justice system. I said I was going to talk about this again. The numbers are really, really high. The one that jumps out at me the most is the juveniles. From the Minnesota study, we're at 99% having a history of TBI. So we do have a Web Wednesday on this as well, where Rebecca presents on a lot more info on criminal justice and brain injury, but then also we brought in a survivor that she's worked with that has been involved with the criminal justice system and has had very positive outcomes after being identified with a brain injury. He wasn't identified for most of his incarcerated life. And so now that he's out and he's been identified and has some strategies in place, he's doing much, much better.
I have a question.
And that's something NDBIN wants to try to make an impact with. We just have recently applied for a grant in hopes of getting us into the criminal justice system in North Dakota. And we're hoping to pick 2 pilot sites and implement screenings across those pilot sites. And if that goes well, then hopefully all criminal justice system areas in North Dakota will implement screenings in order to then provide some opportunities for those people to correct their behavior and just learn about their injury and ways to help them not end up back in jail again. I like this one, the rainbow theme. This is Madison again, Madison K, so that must be a young lady. She said, take pride, don't get TBI. And then she kind of did a rainbow brain for us there. With this one, I just wanted to bring up domestic violence again. An individual who has incurred a blow to the head or been violently shaken as a result of abuse should be screened for brain injury. And their children probably too. Like if, let's say, a whole family goes into a domestic violence shelter, really everybody should probably be screened for brain injury. And we're trying to promote that across the state as well. Most of the blows that are sustained by domestic violence survivors are to the head. So it's like 80% to the head. So oftentimes there's definitely a brain injury there. I just like this quote because I just like it. We are all wonderful, beautiful wrecks. That's what connects us, that we're all broken, all beautifully imperfect. So I think this applies to everybody, not just brain injury survivors, but I think it's important to remember that nobody's perfect and there's hope out there. So that was another thing I wanted to mention was this is one of our graphics we have on our website. And I think it's very true, you know, with brain injury, it's such a hidden disability, a hidden thing. What you see on the outside is not really what you're getting. And so it's definitely a big illusion. And you can see all those different symptoms and consequences of a brain injury listed along the side there. But I don't want to make brain injury seem all gloom and doom. There are so many awesome people in related service fields that can make a huge impact on an individual's recovery. And I would recommend checking out our related services page on our website. Occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy. There's alternative treatments out there with chiropractors and things like that. There's a lot of options. Vision, I think of vision therapy, music therapy. There's just so many options out there, and what works for one isn't going to necessarily work for everyone. But just important to not lose hope. And then, you know, NDBIN, we're here as well to help with recovery and with navigating this process, because there can be so many alternate therapies and related services and things that go along with a brain injury that is part of our role to help you navigate that process and make it less confusing for you and try to take some of that load off of you. So now we get to vote. So I will put this in the chat for you guys so that it's easier for you to access. Just give me 1 sec. I need to stop my screen share. And I will put it in the chat. And you can vote for your favorite. So our plan is, I'm thinking maybe at Mind Matters too, Nikki, on a break or something, I might put this out and see if people want to vote too for their favorite. But our plan with it is our favorite we'll probably use for some of our materials, like a concussion brochure or something like that. We might pop it into probably more kid-specific design or something, but we haven't exactly figured out what yet exactly we're going to do with it. But we do want to pick a winner, and that winner is also going to be given a special prize from NDBIN. I don't want to say in case we don't want to be a spoiler about what they win, but so we're going to send them a prize, and we're also going to send the classes maybe gift cards for the teacher to buy some materials, or else like buy breakfast or something like that. So we'll get those classes some fun things for taking time to learn about brain injury, and hopefully just make it sink in even more. So if you click on that link that I just put in the chat, it will bring you to a voting. You just look at the numbers that are assigned and pick which one you like, and then hit the green arrow to submit. Anyone have any questions for me at all before that was fast and furious, but we aren't offering CEUs today for this one, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that prevention and awareness piece, because it is important. And no, we can't all live in a bubble, but we can try to be a little bit cautious.
One of the things that really got me was looking at the amount of folks that have TBI in jail, and the fact that females were so high.
Yeah.
Is the family violence, is that the predominant thing, or what?
Say that, is it a what?
Is it the predominant reason, or is there something?
For women being so high?
Yeah.
I would, yes, I would say so. Yeah, domestic violence is usually the reason women is so high. Abuse in the home.
And before I forget, one more thing. At the next TBI support group meeting, you might actually consider bringing the slides, and when you contact folks, let them know that there's going to be a presentation of some sort. Maybe that'll help get more folks. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, where was that link at?
It's in your chat. So if you go down along the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little chat bubble. If you click on that, it opens it up on the right-hand side, and there's a blue.
Okay.
You see that there now? Yep. Okay. Yeah. So go ahead and vote, guys. And thank you for coming and your time. And let us know if you ever need anything. Okay. Did you get on, JP?
Yes, I am. I got to admit, though, that